Conventions in exchanges and language choice. Now we come back to our constructs of marked and unmarked language choice. What is markedness of choices or linguistic choices? Markedness or marked choices are those linguistic choices which have conventionally not been used in that given context. And what are unmarked linguistic choices are those choices which have been habitually or traditionally or conventionally used in certain exchanges. Having said that, we need to remember that markedness or unmarkedness of linguistic choices are not categorical distinctions. These might be seen as a continuum in which the speakers of that community or a speech community can suddenly or can easily identify some choices as more marked than other choices, and these are just perceptions about what choice or linguistic choice has been appropriate or has been inappropriate in a given linguistic exchange. For instance, if we take the example of Pakistan, when to use English, when to use Urdu, when to code switch between the two, it depends on the speech event, depends on the participant, situation, context, and there are certain conventions that we have a script of those conventions at the back of our mind, which we earlier said somehow comprises our communicative competence. And when we step out of these rules, then we say that the choice, linguistic choice, has been marked. So, in non-conventionalized exchanges, we talked about conventionalized exchanges. Conventionalized exchanges are the routine linguistic exchanges for which we have a script. We know this is what we will say, this is what more or less the other person will say, this is how the things will progress. But at times, some exchanges are unconventional. For instance, think of a peer you had been working with, and suddenly that peer is now your boss. Or think of a friend that you were very good friends with, and suddenly that person is now, you are the boss of that person. So it's an unconventional situation in which you need to find out new norms to have a linguistic exchange. This is because the norms are not established. Another example, if you move abroad and try a study in in a foreign university, you need to call your professors by their name. Again, it's a non-conventional exchange because we, in our culture, are not used to doing that. So at times in a conflicting norm, as I talked about at the site of a foreign university, sometimes conflicting norms apply because you're expected to do something and your own socio-cultural background brings in something else, and this is what we are talking about. And then the question is, how are linguistic choices made then? In that condition, we make what we call an exploratory choice, linguistic choice, until both of us are comfortable with it, and we can call it an unmarked linguistic choice. Now, we have been talking about what is marked and what is not marked. In other words, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. Somehow, this seems to relate to a normative framework. That means, what is normal? What is a normal framework? And we say that this is the normal thing that we expect from in a given from the speakers in a given exchange. Having said that, please remember that norms do not determine choices. Norms or tradition, what they do is they offer you a framework of choices, a framework of predictable consequences, a kind of a grammar. So you know English grammar, but you make your own choice of what type of sentences you make with it. So over here also, this normative framework about what is appropriate and or not appropriate, it gives you a framework of predictable choices or predictable consequences. So language choice interpretation is not a historical, that is free of historical context, but it is always context bound. So what we are saying is that when you are in a negotiation, the speakers weigh their consequences, they weigh their choices, they think about the cost and benefit with relation to the norms of language choice. But in any case, these linguistic choices are creative and they are localized. That is, they are made with reference to specific contexts. And there are three possibilities of choices that one can make. Either one goes along with the given norms, or one uses an unmarked choice, that is, one goes against the norms for a specific purpose, deliberately to assert a different kind of personality or different kind of identity. Or we make a choice which is more exploratory and we try to identify what is it that can somehow make both speakers comfortable. So code switching then is both an index and a tool. So a speaker uses it as a tool to do something. The addressee, the one who is being talked to, spoken to, perceives it as an index, an indication of a change in social relationship. And it is also said that this makes it both a means, an instrument, and a message in itself. So, it is a strategy to change social relationships.